I mean, I had reservations for almost 20 years. I just, it was such a special thing. We really just didn't want to disturb our fondness for those memories.
I think you did some work already.
Yeah, I've been sewing. That's me, doing all the tailoring.
When you do a sequel to an absolute classic 20 years later, what are the biggest challenges and what are the things to avoid?
Well, the biggest challenge is meeting expectations. I think we're lucky enough to make a movie that people have cherished for 20 years, and for me, the reason to avoid doing a sequel was to not risk, failing to live up to those expectations. It was a really daunting prospect. We worked really hard. Aline Brosh McKenna, the screenwriter, and I worked really hard to not repeat elements from the first movies, to take the characters, see where they were 20 years later, set a story in motion, and create twists that were surprising and quite different. And it was really easy to sort of go down some narrative paths that seemed too familiar. So that was something that we pushed really hard to keep surprising the audience.
Did you have any reservation at first? Why was now the right timing to make the film?
I mean, I had reservations for almost 20 years. I just, it was such a special thing. We really just didn't want to disturb our fondness for those memories and risk doing something that might not live up to the expectations. But it felt like the world had changed, and it felt like, we just were bubbling up with curiosity about how these characters would deal with the challenges of a contracting world of journalism and fashion.
That's something that resonated with me, of course, as a child.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Speaking of the changed world, when was the last time you watched the first one, and how do you think it held up to today's standards?
I was lucky enough to go with Meryl Streep and Aline Brosh McKenna and Wendy Feinerman, the producer, to a screening hosted by Lin-Manuel Miranda at a movie palace in Washington Heights, New York City, where they screened The Devil Wears Prada for 3,000 people. And honestly, it was like the Beatles at Shea Stadium. The enthusiasm in that theater was overwhelming. The movie was really entertaining. People applauded as characters came and went on screen. And then Meryl could hardly get out of there. The fans were just so excited to see her. And it really made you feel like, wow, they're not just, an audience for the first movie, but there's so much affection and so much curiosity that, it really is, the fans deserve to see, what's happened to these characters 20 years later.
Now, one thing that I really like about the new film is it contains a lot of funny situations with the changed social climate, with political correctness. We see Miranda struggling with that.
Yeah.
Did the current social climate make it more difficult, more challenging, maybe, to make this film today? Or was it like a great opportunity for lots of jokes?
Yeah, I mean, we viewed it as an opportunity. You have some drama out of the idea of someone potentially getting canceled. You have, the risk that somebody would say the wrong thing would violate, new HR policies. The way Miranda used to be able to throw her coats at people and make outrageous demands and work them 24/7. And obviously that's all changed. We just live in a different environment. And she's still Miranda, but she's got to live within these new rules.
How much would you say the film reflects a social climate also that we have in Hollywood that maybe is different than 20 years ago? Is filmmaking different than 20 years ago?
I feel like, in the old days, you would just work people to death. And, we're definitely very aware of, maybe we shouldn't be doing that anymore. So, yeah, there's, all around, there's a little more respect for work-life balance, even in a demanding field like making a film.
And you yourself, so you did the first one, and of course lots of other films, but 20 years is a long time. how would you say you've changed or evolved as a director? How do you, are there things that you approach differently now than you would have 20 years ago?
Yeah, you know, when you get older, it's like a weird combination of I'm more insecure about certain things. I'm more aware of what I don't know and the skills that I don't have. And so, but as a result, you kind of work harder, you know, and I was younger, you're probably a little more brash, you're a little overconfident, you know, and now I know, but I will say, you know, what I learned, and Meryl Streep taught me this, is like movies are edited. And, you know, and there's this urgency to get things perfect that a lot of people approach their work with. And the beautiful thing about movies is that they only have to be perfect once. They don't have to be perfect on every take. And, you know, it's that comfort in sort of finding you know, keep working toward the perfect take, and having the patience to do that, which I probably didn't have 20 years ago.
We started this conversation about what you should maybe avoid or what you should do for a sequel. How much pressure did you actually feel? How much pressure was there on set? Did everybody feel pressure, or was everybody just happy to be, you know, doing it again?
Well, they're very good actors, so they, you know, there was an illusion of happy to be there and just doing it again. But I'm sure that everybody felt a certain pressure, partly because, you know, the first movie was so meaningful. It changed all our lives, and it created a connection with an audience and many generations of the audience. That's just so unusual. It's the kind of thing that, I mean, you know, Meryl's made dozens of movies. Annie and Emily have made, you know, 50 movies each. And, you know, it's just really rare that any of those films, as popular as they are and as iconic as they are, still resonate with the audience the way Devil Wears Prada does.
Now, I hate to say this, but there's a third book by Lauren Weisberg.
Yeah.
So would it take for another sequel, and probably not in 20 years?
Yeah, probably not in 20 years. I mean, you know, do we still have curiosity about where the characters go? Do we still love working with these amazing movie stars? Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, we just finished this movie, so it's hard to think about another one. But, you know, if that opportunity arose, yeah, of course, we'd embrace it.
I would love that. Really enjoyed the film.
Thank you.
Thank you so
kind.
much, David.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, because there's plenty more where this came from. So do click on the other videos and enjoy. It's Quotable.